that when we look at many of our principles that we have, our religious principles, some of them don't seem to fit very well in the modern world. But look at the mistake of the way that that's framed. Who wants to fit into the modern world? When you say things like that, you're taken as a given that the modern world is something that needs to be or should be fit into. Who wants to fit into the modern world? Who wants to fit into the toxicity of the modern world? Who wants to fit in? Yes, of course, there's good things in the time in which we live. But the general trend is a trend of decadence. The general trend is a trend of a downward motion. Who wants to fit into that? We cannot be so intellectually stagnant that we think that that's our goal, is to fit Islam into the modern world. On the contrary, is that Islam is truth. It is truth with a capital T. It tells us how we need to be in any given time. And of course, that includes the time in which we live. But what we need to strive to do is to understand Islam as it is so we can make the changes that we need to make. And one of the great examples of that is how our deen teaches us to be an abd, to be a slave and servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only. Our deen teaches us to submit to Allah. Our deen teaches us to not allow ourselves to be enslaved by anything in creation. And this is one of the great principles of spiritual chivalry. As Imam As-Sunami says, وَمِنِ الْفُتُوَّةِ أَنْ يَكُونَ حُرًّا مِنَ الْأَكْوَانِ وَمَا فِيهَا لِيَكُونَ عَبْدًا لِمَنْ لَهُ الْأَكْوَانِ بِأَسْرِهَا. It is from futuwa to be free from enslavement to the world and what it contains, so that one can be a slave to the one who owns the world in its entirety. What a beautiful principle. What an empowering principle. What an uplifting principle. What a healing principle. Think about how much people need this. How much do people need this? How many people are enslaved to their passions, enslaved to their job, enslaved to the way that they view the world, enslaved to an addiction or a habit that they have, enslaved to something that they've acquired, enslaved to a particular hobby or whatever way that it might be. And this is echoed in two very beautiful statements of Ibn Atta'illah, who wrote this amazing book of aphorisms that they say it's like the dastur, it's like the constitution of the awliya. It's like these are the rules they abide by. This teaches you the lofty principles that we have to know intellectually first and foremost, and then strive and struggle with ourselves every day of our lives until we die to at least try to move in the direction of attaining them. No one's making claims, but we should talk about them because there's solace that comes to the heart even in just knowing them intellectually, let alone when we even just start to taste their sweetness. And do we realize how much suffering we are saved when we start to experience these principles? Even if it's at the level of just knowledge, knowing them. Every time you think about them, it will start to remove these attachments, which will make you feel better. It will make you more healthy. So one of the first ones, as he says, أَنْتَ حُرٌّ مِمَّا أَنْتَ عَنْهُ آيَسٍ. You are free from anything that you have despaired from. وَعَبْدٌ لِمَا أَنْتَ لَهُ طَامِعٌ. And a slave of anything that you desire. You are free from anything that you have an aversion toward, that you despaired from. And you are a slave to anything that it is that you desire. The two words there, yats and tama'. Tama' is this greedy, avaricious type desire. And yats is where you've despaired from something. You have no hope to attain that particular thing. Because why? When you despair from something, it's a sign that it's no longer in your heart. And when something's no longer in your heart, you no longer consider it. But when you desire something, then you love that thing. And whenever it is that you love something and will do anything that you can do to attain that thing, it's as if that you're worshiping that thing, because that becomes the criterion whereby which your behavior is guided. The next one states, ما أحببت شيء إلا كنت له عبدا. That never will you love something, desire something, or like something, except that you will be a slave to it. وهو لا يحب. But Allah Ta'ala does not love for you أن تكوني لغير عبدا, that you be a slave to anything other than Him, than He, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah wants you to be a slave to Him only, not to anything else in creation. So if we think about this these blessed aphorisms and this principle of spiritual chivalry, think about what this does. This lets us know that you and I need to work on this. And these principles we have to reflect upon, and we have to think about, and we have to go from the principle to the practice. And in the process of reflection, it will become more and more clear to us exactly how to put them into practice. How it is that we can live in this world but not to be overly attached to it. To be in this world but not to be of this world. How that we can take part in it. We have family, we have friends, we have children, we have clothes, we have possessions, we have work, but not let those things imprison us. And sometimes there's very subtle differences between the two. And there's very subtle things that transpire at the level of the heart that dictate whether or not someone is almost as if that they are worshiping it, or it's almost as if that on the other side of the spectrum, that it's in the correct way, is that they are using it for what it is and seeing everything ultimately being from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah only wants us to be an abd to Him.